Hello everybody, it is MischiefWoW again, and I'm here for another guide. So let's get started. First of all, my Death Knight is using a two-hander, simply because the main hand and offhand I had were both 353 eye level, and I got this axe which is 378, so just because of the major eye level difference, that's why I'm using a two-hander as opposed to two one-handers. Dual wielding is slightly better for DPS, not a ton, but for max DPS you're going to want to go two-hander. But like I said, with me, if you have a two-hander that's a much higher eye level than your dual wielding weapons, you're going to want to go with dual wielding. And there's a few minor differences between the two, but none major. So first we'll look at stats. You're going to go with your straight strength. Most classes either have strength, agility, or intellect as kind of their main stats, so Death Knights would be using strength for their #1 stat. That's like lots of strength. It's going to give you a lot of DPS. Below that, you're going to want to hit your 8% hit cap so that your special attacks will always hit. Then you're going to want to get 26 expertise. That's going to get you a good amount of hitting the boss so that they don't dodge or parry. Below that is Haste. Haste is pretty good. You're going to get more runic power, faster runes, and you're going to hit more often, and your diseases are going to tick more. Below Haste is Mastery. That's going to increase your Frost Fever, Howling Blast, and Frost Strike damage. Unfortunately, not Obliterate, but that's okay. And lastly is Crit. It's not as good because with your Killing Machine procs, you're going to get guaranteed crits, so Crit there is not going to help you, and just for other reasons, it's not as great. So now that we're here, we might as well look at talents. The difference between two-handed and dual wielding is you're going to put 3 points out of these two total, whichever you want to take, into Nerves of Cold Steel. And you're going to want to put these 3 points into these 3. That's the only difference between two-handed and one-handed. So let's just look at all the talents that you could pick for two-handed or dual wield. So Runic Power Mastery is good, increase Runic Power Maximum. You might want a little bit more points than that for two-handed than as opposed to dual wielding, but it's never bad. AC Reach is not the greatest. It's not going to help almost at all, just for trivial purposes. It's mostly to help unlock the next tier if you're doing two-handed and don't want to put your points into Nerves of Cold Steel, which is 100% useless for two-handed. You'd be dumb not to take Annihilation. 45% damage on your Obliterate. That's amazing DPS increase. And like I said, you're not a Frost Death Knight if you do not take this talent. Lichborn, not that great. It's more for PvP or self-healing as a Blood Death Knight, so don't take that. On a Pale Horse, if you really want to, it can help with farming because it increases your mount speed, but it's not really going to help with DPS. Endless Winter is fairly good because it's going to cause your Interrupt Mind Freeze to not cost runic power, so you're going to not lose runic power and no DPS loss. Killing Machine, which I mentioned before, is your proc. That's going to make your auto attacks have a chance to make your next Obliterate or Frost Strike crit. It's much better to use Obliterate because it does a ton more damage, so just prioritize using Obliterate when this procs as opposed to Frost Strike. Chill of the Grave is just going to cause your Howling Blast, Obliterate, and Chains of Ice generate more runic power, just useful. Merciless Combat, your Icy Touch, which you pretty much never use. Howling Blast, Obliterate, and Frost Strike do more damage to low health targets. That's just good. Rhyme is another proc that makes your Obliterate have a chance to make your next Howling Blast use no runes. Pillar of Frost is a cooldown that's going to increase your strength. That's pretty good. Improved Icy Talons is a talent that's going to increase your Raid's melee and ranged attack speed and your own melee attack speed by an additional amount. Brittle Bones is going to increase your strength and going to cause your Frost Fever debuff to increase their damage taken. Chillbanes is only for PvP. Hunger and Cold, really only PvP or emergency button, but you do need it to unlock Howling Blast. Improved Frost Presence. Right now, Unholy Presence is better than Frost Presence, but when in Unholy Presence, you're still going to get a bit more increased runic power generation. Plus, there's not really any talents anywhere else in the tree that would help you unlock the next tier. Might of the Frozen Wastes and Thread of Thessarian. Basically, if you're dual wielding, like I said before, take this one. If you're doing two-handed, take this one. For wielding a two-handed, your melee attacks will deal extra damage, and your auto attacks have a chance to generate extra runic power, which is why doing runic power mastery is slightly better. And Thread of Thessarian for dual wielding. I won't list them all, but a bunch of your attacks have a chance to also deal. When you put all points in them, has a 100% chance to deal damage with your offhand weapon as well. And Howling Blast, it goes for Rhyme proc, and it pretty much replaces Icy Touch. Now in the Unholy Tree, you could put one from Epidemic into Virulence, or one from the Blood Tree into Virulence, but it's really up to you. It's a lot better for AoE with Howling Blast, but it still does help for single target as well. Epidemic increases the duration of your diseases, just makes it easier. Bladed Armor is going to increase your attack power for your armor, and you're going to get armor no matter what, so it's just extra attack power. And Butchery is extra runic power, which is good. Alright, so now we'll look at glyphs. There's 4 glyphs you can take. Icy Touch is going to cause your Frost Fever to deal more damage. This is actually useful for AoE when your Hunger and Cold is on a lot of people. It doesn't actually directly affect Icy Touch, just the Frost Fever debuff, so don't get misled by that. So yeah, only take that when you're doing AoE. Howling Blast, it's very good because Howling Blast is going to put Frost Fever on, which makes it fully replace Icy Touch. This is great because Rhyme is going to refresh your Frost Fever when it procs and you hit Howling Blast, as well as the fact that AoE is going to put Frost Fever on all the targets, and you never, like I already said, you never have to use Icy Touch. I keep getting this error that says my add-ons are being annoying, but they're not. Frost Strike is going to make your Frost Strike cost less runic power, which is good. And Obliterate, which increases damage of Obliterate by 20%. Combined with Annihilation, that's a huge, huge damage when you use Obliterate, so that's always going to be your #1 DPS spell. So I mentioned it before, but for DPS, this goes for the Frost and Unholy spec. This is just Frost spec, but Unholy Presence is much better than Frost Presence at the moment for DPS. I have a feeling that when Mist of Pandaria come out, assuming that most of it stays the same, Unholy Presence will get a nerf or Frost will get a buff, not sure. Just because it seems weird that Frost is using Unholy, just my opinion. But for now, Unholy Presence. So buffs, you're gonna just use Horn of Winter. It's gonna give you runic power in combat, so if all your runes are on cooldown and you have like no runic power, you can pop that for a bit of extra runic power. And if there's a warrior using Battle Shout or another DK using Horn of Winter, or I think there's a Shaman Totem that does that too. You don't have to use it, but like I said, it gives you a little bit of runic power, and if there's nothing else to do, you can use it. I'll quickly touch on cooldowns. You have obviously trinkets. I just want to quickly show this trinket. It's pretty cool. It drops off the last boss in Well of Eternity, and it does a big kind of spell damage thing while at melee. It's pretty cool. You have your Pillar of Frost, which increases your strength. Now I didn't go over the major glyphs and minors because they're not really important, but I suggest don't really take Pillar of Frost, I guess unless situationally for PvP, because it freezes you when you use it, and if you need to move out of something, you're either losing DPS or dying. And by the way, a dead DK does less DPS than living DK. Raised Dead is going to cause you to get Ghoul, extra damage. If you're about to die, use a Death Pact to sacrifice it for some more health. And Empower Rune Weapon, you're going to get all your runes back, and get 25 runic power. I suggest, unless you need to refresh blood plague, use obliterate 3 times right after, because that's going to be a huge DPS boost. And the tricky one, Army of the Dead, because of its taunting, it can mess stuff up. Icebound Fortitude, if you really want to help out your healers, you might lose a little bit of DPS, but if your healers are having trouble, it might do it. Anti-Magic Shield doesn't cost anything, so you can pop that for a heavy AoE ability that the boss may cast. So for your rotation, you're going to want to make sure that your diseases are always up on the target. They're going to tick for damage and increase the damage of your obliterate. So you're going to mainly want to use Outbreak every time it's up. And if you're proccing Rime, like I just did now, if you proc it enough, you're going to have Frost Fever almost always up. So you're really going to only need to refresh your Blood Plague. So that's your first priority, is your diseases. Next is your obliterate, because of its insanely high damage. And I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again. When Killing Machine procs, you're going to want to use obliterate instead of Frost Strike. Just because, like I said many times, it's insanely high damage. Now my gear isn't the greatest, and I have a couple gems missing and stuff, but it's pretty crazy damage. Below that is your Rime proc. So if you proc Rime, you're going to want to hit your Howling Blast. And finally, if you're almost capped on runic power, or capped, like I'm capped right now, Frost Strike. It doesn't deal a ton of damage. It is affected by your mastery, and it's decent damage, but just obliterate is crazy damage, and Rime is going to help you keep your Frost Fever up. So apply your diseases, bam, obliterate. My runic power is already capped. Rime, obliterate, obliterate, capped. Hit it again. Dawn of Winter. Rime proc. Now really, you can honestly, if you really want to, just kind of spam Frost Strike and obliterate as they're active. It's not bad to do that, but you'll get better if you prioritize obliterate and stuff. So now I'm going to hit my Plague Strike because my diseases are wearing off. Also for cooldowns, you can hit Blood Tap. It's only a minute cooldown, so I like to hit it when I can. And yes, I do click somewhat. But yeah, that's mostly it for a Frost Death Knight. Leave a comment suggesting a guide, gold guide, class guide, boss guide, achievement guide. Remember to subscribe, like, favorite, share. Check out my other channel, NerdFilms Baller. It's a pretty decent channel. Got almost 130 subs over there. Make little movie type videos and Minecraft videos with some people I know. Minecraft videos are just me, but I do the filming and the editing and the stuff over there. But yeah, thanks for watching, and make sure that if you're playing a Frost Death Knight right, you're doing more than 6k DPS, because I'm doing the guide and half cracked gear, half not paying attention, so don't worry, Frost Death Knights don't just do 6k DPS. And peace.